let's see, what else do we got going on? Okay, 60 frames per second with PowerPoint. One of the reasons we might want to use 60 frames per second is, of course, because video that runs at 60 frames a second is almost always much smoother. And this is especially true with PowerPoint and slides that are pretty heavy on animation and or complexity. Okay, so this is kind of a technical thing, but I'm going to walk you through it, so don't freak out on me here. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to run what's called a macro that is going to tell PowerPoint in its computer codey language that I would like to produce this slide deck out as a video, but I want it to be 60 frames a second. And we'll see the details of that in just a second. But rest assured that it is going to be smooth as butter and beautiful, as opposed to if we just go to File and Export and create a video. Yeah, we can get some nice high quality frame rates and stuff like that, but may tend to be a little bit jerky, and maybe not even really noticeably so, but nonetheless, exporting at 60 frames per second is going to be a superior quality as far as smoothness goes. And when you have slide decks like this that have, we'll play one here, lots of animation, lots of stuff going on, then yeah, 60 frames per second is a beautiful thing. So here's basically the process. In your slide deck, what you're going to want to do on Windows 10 is press Alt F11. I'm on Windows 7, so that doesn't work for me. So I'm going to show you the kind of manual way to do it. I'm going to go on the View tab, and I'm going to click Macros. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of create one here. So I'm going to call this PowerPoint video. Right? And I'm going to click Create. Now, if you're on Windows 10 again, if you just press Alt F11, boom, this is what you're going to get. It's going to pop this up. Okay? And then we're going to enter in a whole bunch of Visual Basic code. Yay! But again, not to worry, don't get freaked out or anything, but let's go ahead and I'll give you the link to download this little code snippet. And code snippets are easy. I'm just going to highlight everything, right click and copy, and then highlight everything and Control V to paste. Okay, so this is basically what it's going to put in here. And with this kind of arrangement, we can make a couple of little tweaks if we want. By default, the code is for 1080p resolution. You could put 720. You could also put 2180 if you wanted 4K HD, right? And then 60 frames per second is the default because that's kind of what we want. Your other options here would be 30 frames a second, which we can do normally, so we don't worry about that, or 25 frames a second. The difference between 30 and 60 frames, like I say, is pretty noticeable. So what this is going to do is, again, in computer speak, it's going to say, Dear PowerPoint, please create this file on my desktop, a WMV file, and by the way, make it 1080p at 60 frames a second. Right? So that's pretty much all you have to do. And then what I'm going to do is just close this and close this. So now, once I have my slide deck all ready to go, I'll go to View, Macros, and here's my macro that I just created. And all you do is you click Run. And what that's going to do is it takes a while. When you click Run here, it's going to produce out that WMV video. And I'm not going to do that right now, basically because I've already done it. But do not be surprised if this takes a while to do, depending upon how many slides you have and things like that. So what you're going to end up with is, on your desktop, this guy right here. And I guess you could, in the code, change the relative path if you wanted to. I just kind of left it the same. But you're going to end up with this on your desktop. What I would suggest you do is to move this into a folder and probably rename it, right? Just so the next time you do it, you don't overwrite your project video there. So that's kind of what I did here. I just moved it into a folder and gave it another name. And if I were to run this, it's basically just beautiful. It is just amazing. What we can do then is just grab this and I'll drag it into my project. So like I say, it can get kind of big, 152 megs. And here's what you should not expect if you view it in Camtasia. Let's just add it to the timeline. And my project currently is 30 frames a second, but I'm going to convert this project to 60 frames. And one would be tempted to think that if I go ahead and preview this, it's going to be nice and 60 frames per second smooth, right? That's probably not going to happen. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and try to preview it and we'll see what happens. But what you'll notice is it's really jerky. And that's because at 60 frames a second, your real-time preview is going to suck. You can kind of alleviate that to a degree by, of course, all of the regular performance stuff, lots of memory, a good video card. But even in addition to that, like on my machine, I have both of those things. But anything else you have running, especially, let's look at my resource manager and the performance here. So you see I have plenty of memory free and it's chewing up some processing power here, probably a pretty good chunk, but things like Chrome are just resource pigs. So if you want to get anywhere close to kind of being able to work with real-time previews, you generally want to have like everything out of the way. In other words, closed out. So that's just kind of something that I ran across that I thought might be kind of interesting for folks. Since 2018 now supports 60 frames per second, yeah, this kind of content, a handy little addition to your PowerPoint toolbox, right? 60 frames a second is great. Oh, and when I produce this out, it's going to be beautiful as well. So this is a WMV file. If I produce it out as a local file, and here's another thing, by the way, in 2018, there is no preset for 60 frames a second. If I export this as 1080p, it's going to be 30 frames a second. The only way to get 60 frames a second is to use custom production settings, click Next, and by default your only option there is to use the Smart Player. Well, I rarely want the Smart Player, so I'm going to click Next, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to discombobulate the Smart Player, and to do that you just uncheck Produce with Controller, right? So now all I'm going to get output is a MP4 video file. And of course, if you want to produce with the controller, you can, but you'll play hell trying to embed it on a website or anything. It will give you the video file just with a whole bunch of extra player files and crap. So here, if we go to video settings, you can see that you can set it for 60 frames a second. And I'll keep the quality on this fairly high, 75%. It's probably good. I wouldn't take it up to 100 because it doesn't really buy you anything, and it'll make your file size huge. What we're looking for is the number of frames per second as providing that smoothness and quality. Okay, so you can do that. I've actually created a preset for my 60 frames per second. Let's try looking at that real quick. So you can create custom presets. So you'll notice here I have two that I was testing, but they're essentially the same. So you can create your own preset, and basically I'll just call this test. And then it basically just walks through the production wizard again. So no, I don't want the controller. The size, use the editing dimensions, whatever those are. And 60 frames a second. Set this to 60. And your audio settings, I'd probably put those up to 192. And then when you save that, instead of going through the custom production settings, all I have to do is click this, right? So now it's going to kick out an MP4 video file without the controller, 1080p at 60 frames a second. So you can create your own preset for that. All right. Julie says, that is a beautiful template. Isn't it though? I just love this template. It is stupid easy to do. Did you guys grab this? I gave it away for free, you know. The link is still in there to grab this in a tutorial. All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions, we're a little after the top of the hour, so I will talk to you all later. Thanks for coming.